The most common types of cases we get are DUIs and reckless drivings. Prince William in particular, we get those because we have multiple major state highways and interstate highways that run through Prince William. So with DUIs specifically, of course, every case will depend on what level of blood alcohol concentration the prosecution is alleging that you had at the time. Typically for your first offense, which is a Class 1 misdemeanor, you're not really concerned too much about the amount of jail time unless there's a mandatory minimum from your blood alcohol level. The concern is, number one, are you going to become a convicted misdemeanant? And number two, there's a lot of sort of collateral administrative consequences with DUIs. Your license gets suspended for a year. You're usually eligible for a restricted, but that's a real pain. You have to do alcohol probation through something called ASAP, which stands for Alcohol Safety Action Program. And if you request a restricted license for that whole year that your license is suspended, you have to have an ignition interlock installed on your vehicle for at least 6 months. It can be up to 12 months. So Prince William and many other places offer what are called standard dispositions. And that means you have a small amount of jail time that is completely suspended, conditioned upon you doing all of what I just said and paying a mandatory minimum fine of $250. So the goal in DUI cases really is to beat that, to get something better, perhaps a reduction to reckless, perhaps to get it dismissed or acquitted entirely if there's a triable issue or defense, or to get it changed to something else that maybe isn't about driving. If there's a question about were you actually driving or was it actually you, something like drunk in public or open container or possession of alcohol, which are all lesser misdemeanors. And so that gets us also into reckless driving. Reckless driving and DUI carry 6 negative points with the Virginia DMV, and those are the points that affect your insurance rates. So from that perspective, they're the same, but from basically every other perspective, reckless driving is much better than DUI to have. Virginia is one of the only states in the country that has a criminal version of speeding. One of those versions is reckless driving by speed. And so getting a reckless driving is something that can be easily explained. A lot of employers are used to seeing it with people that have experience in Virginia. Even security clearance and background checks, it's not fatal. DUIs can mess you up a lot more. Reckless driving can only suspend your license for a maximum of 6 months, and it's a lot less common to get your license suspended for 6 months or even at all for reckless driving. And you certainly don't have the mandatory fines or jail time or even ignition interlock and ASAP stuff to do for reckless driving. So people should expect in these cases that the starting point for what may be offered by the prosecution or done by the judge, ultimately a big factor will be what their driving record already is, okay, in terms of points, in terms of what prior offenses you've had that involve driving, and how old all of this stuff is. How long have you been driving with issues? How long have you not been driving with issues? Age is another big factor, and of course the circumstances of what happened. Was there a car crash? Did you get hurt? Did you do something particularly dangerous? Did the cops have to chase you for a long time? Were you combative, argumentative, things like that? So for both charges, you should not worry too much about getting a lot of jail time or any jail time at all. It's more about the label of a conviction and what it does to your driving record and your license and your point balance, which is what insurance looks at. Technically, they are both one-class misdemeanors. Up to 12 months in jail, up to $2,500 fine. Almost no one gets those maximums, but that is technically the maximum punishment for each.